All right, yes, it is the meat and potatoes. And as mentioned, I am delighted to welcome to the show Rachel Brown. Rachel, thanks so much for joining us from Alabama.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
I've been excited for this conversation, and we gave it a crack, but we had some technical difficulties. So we're here for round two, and hopefully we have that strong connection between Alabama and San Francisco. But with every guest, I love to understand a little bit of background, a little bit of history, and that side of stuff. You've listened to the show many times, so you're pretty well versed in this. Why don't you just give the listeners a couple of minutes on your background, growing up, where you're at now, family situation, etc.
Okay. I grew up in Boaz, Alabama, which is a small town of about 10,000, 70 miles north of Birmingham. I currently live in Boaz, Alabama, and I've lived here my entire life other than when I attended college. And I've been married for 29 years. I have 7 children who are all boys, whose ages range from 14 to 24.
So, I mean, I want to pause here and talk about this because it's fascinating. I've got one of my best friends, Peter, has 3 girls, and he said, "I can't believe it, 3 girls, loves them dearly." What was that process like? As a decade's worth of sort of, was it a surprise? I know it's a surprise every time, but you're like, "There's got to be a girl coming up here some stage."
Yeah, you would think so. I don't know what a girl would do mixed in with all these boys, but yeah, it's unbelievable that we were able to have 7 boys, and it's been nonstop for my oldest is 24, so for 24 years now, just
Full
full-time
steam.
job, a lot of action, a lot of fun though.
I
It's
can
been a
imagine
real
tremendous.
adventure.
I can't imagine what Thanksgiving dinners are and things like that, so it must be a lot of volume of food. That's
Oh
all I
yeah,
can imagine.
especially with all those boys.
Well, it's like we always talk about the executives and CEOs and people like that we work with, but your life is the epitome of time starved. Like there's a lot going on, but we're gonna dig into that. But I'd love to also know your sporting background. And did you grow up doing sports globally?
Yes, I was always active, but my primary sport was basketball. I started playing basketball when I was 12, played all the way through high school. I went to college on a basketball scholarship. I played 2 years at a junior college and then 2 years Division 3.
Wow, fantastic. Okay, so what was the catalyst then to get into endurance sports and starting to go linear rather than every direction and for time and things like that. How did that come about?
Well, I guess after my final basketball game, I knew I wanted to continue to stay in shape because, that just been a part of my life.
Hmm.
And so I just decided I would start running. It was a simple sport. I did a lot of running in basketball anyway. So I basically just started running just to stay in shape.
Fantastic. And you went on. It was, I guess, as you'd gone through the hurricane of being the mum, the really busy time. But was it mid 40s that you really started to get the bug with a little bit more serious running, edging towards things like marathons and that side of stuff?
Yeah, somewhere around 45. My children were older. I had a little bit of breathing room. So I decided I'd like to start training. And I thought about training for a race. I thought I'd start training for marathons. So I wanted to complete a few halves. And I thought, well, if that goes well, I'll try to do my first marathon. So
Fantastic.
that's how I got into the competition.
So I want to dig into the nuts and bolts a little bit because you know 5, 6, 7 years ago, starting to do marathons, you've now gone on a journey, predominantly a runner, but we'll get into some of the multi-sport stuff a little bit later as you leverage it with training. But when you reflect back, what were some of the challenges? And maybe we should focus predominantly. You can focus on running globally if you'd like, but also training and competing in marathons. When you go back, what were some of your challenges that you faced?
I guess my primary challenges were optimizing my training time because, of course, I was very busy and I was unsure how to do that. And, when I started to get serious about improving my running, I started reading all that I could about running, articles, books, and, it was very frustrating, intimidating, and confusing. Confusing in the way that, um, most of the training or the books that I read, they advised how to train for a race, but I really wasn't sure what to do before the race or after the race. How do you prepare even to get ready to do a training plan, or what do you do after? I didn't know how to train progressively for a year. So that was something that was a real challenge for me. And I was really confused, intimidated because, up until this point, I'd never really ran more than a 10K. So um, I never did speed work. So just looking at all those plans and all that information and all the different names for speed work just was very intimidating for me.
And it's interesting, isn't it? I was chatting to someone just the other day and said if you Google, and I was actually talking about open water swimming, as how to get better at open water swimming, but in your case, get ready for a marathon. If you Google it, you're going to get 25 different results, and you're going to get 25 different opinions, and most of the people that are supplying those opinions are, on the face of it, pretty credible. So, you've got this massive blizzard of conflicting advice. How are you supposed to filter through, cut through that noise and say, "This is what" it almost becomes a second job straight away. Yeah, is that I'm gonna assume
Right.
that's what it
Very
felt.
time consuming, very time
Yeah.
consuming.
And were there any, with the training, in preparation for the show, you talked a little bit about, your propensity in the early years to drive up, which is very common, of course. I would say probably the most common mistake, but chasing quantity over quality of running and accumulation of hours. Was that a big challenge for you? And maybe dig into that a little bit for me?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when I was reading all this information, that's what the primary focus was, volume. Build the volume, you'll get better. So that's for the most part what I would do is just read books and find some information and train according to that book for a while, and that became frustrating, or for whatever reason, I couldn't handle the volume, or just the I was intimidated for the speed sessions that they prescribed. So then I'd go to a different plan. I kind of followed that cycle over and over, just one plan, one article, uh, variety of different ways. But basically, my training was based on volume. Now, I was swimming a little, and I was riding an indoor spin bike. I had an indoor spin bike in our home gym. So I had a little bit of variety, and I was strength training. So that was some positives. But primarily, my running was just very random. Uh, ran the same course, same speed, no variety whatsoever.
I'm interested. Did the body break down at all? Did you were you sort of set back with many injuries?
No, fortunately,
Great.
I knew that I needed to be very careful. I was 45 years old. I didn't have a background in high volume running anyway. So I didn't run every day. I was still running like 3 or 4 days a week, just trying to focus on as much volume as I could during those 3 days, particularly the long run. That's what it was all about, the long run, trying to, build the volume in that. So I was able to stay healthy.
That's
I had
great.
no significant injuries.
I tell you what, if we just sort of pause and go back right there, having a little bit of autonomy. You mentioned you swam a little bit, you used the bike, and I want to underline you certainly don't identify or do triathlons. So this wasn't in pursuit of you getting ready for an Ironman or anything like this. You're a runner, and but even you had intuition to filter through that blizzard of information that you got and say, you know what, this is probably pretty smart. So it's you were doing some smart stuff there, and it was wonderful to hear that you did do strength training, right when you start, because starting at 45 going through, you've heard me talk about it many times, but that's a critical sort of cornerstone. As what one more question before we sort of move on to the evolution and how things have evolved since you've been with Purple Patch. But I'm interested in things like uh, approach to eating, fueling, hydration, rest and recovery. did you have much strategy around those areas, or were you busy enough just trying to get dinner on the table for 7 boys?
Well, actually, those were priorities for me, and it was always important that we teach our children proper eating, and we tried to always keep them active. So that was something that I focused on a lot anyway.
Fantastic.
Not to the degree I learned so much, from Purple Patch, particularly the 4 pillars, just how to get that organized and more precise than what I was doing. But it was definitely a priority, just not as much as it should have been.
Well, it's fantastic that it was, and great job with the kids and that side of stuff. So I guess what was the sort of leading us into Purple Patch a little bit? What was the catalyst to say, you know what, I'm not going to print out another PDF plan. I'm not going to sort of just cycle through. Well, did we just randomly happen to be the next thing, or was there a catalyst to decide to get involved with the Run Squad sort of thing? I'm interested. What was the sort of initiative, the spark for that?
Well, I guess what happened was during the research, of course, I came upon your podcast, started listening to your podcast, and I listened to your approach, time starved approach. I was really interested in that. And the multi-sport with running, and I actually that was at a time where you sold an education membership.
Oh yeah,
I guess you know
yeah,
what I'm talking about. So I
yeah.
bought one of those, and I just researched your website and read all your running philosophy, training philosophy, and I thought this is what I think I need to follow. And I, for a while, just listened to the podcast. And I think shortly after that, y'all started the Tri Squad, and I thought, well, if I can I'll just join Squad, because I knew from reading that y'all were in the future had planned were planning a Run Squad as well. So I thought I'll just follow the Tri Squad until they start Run Squad, then I'll jump aboard that. So that's what I did, and I didn't train like a Ironman, but I did follow all the strength and really tried to complete all the runs y'all had on the plan. And then I do the swimming and biking at a certain level, not anywhere to the level of an Ironman.
Of
But
course, yeah.
that's what I did. And then as soon as Run Squad started, I changed over to the multi-sport run approach.